would be honored if you would join us.
Greetings and welcome to another YouTube episode of Film Stories with me, Dan Cooper. This episode comes with a major spoiler warning. However, I try not to normally discuss major spoilers in these episodes, but at some point we're going to breach that prime directive. Worry not though, fearless viewer, I will be sure to give you fair notice. We begin, as always, with a quick news story. Last week, actually, in the news story, we looked at the kind of screening of the small British independent movie Wolf at Cineworld. Just an update on that. I've heard nothing back from either Cineworld or the production company Stronghold that I reached out to, but I'll keep you updated. This week in the news, Amazon announced that director and Film Story's favourite, Guillermo del Toro, the director of the Oscar-winning Shape of Water, will be releasing his own book of short stories. And Del Toro, of course, released an anthology of short horror tales into cinemas this summer in the form of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which he produced and was directed by Andre Ovredal. But now it seems that the iconic filmmaker himself is going to dip his toes into the literary world. Here's a quick quote from the man himself. He says, "Throughout the years, I've been inspired by reading short stories, from ghost stories to fairy tales. Now I have the privilege to create and share my own." As well as now becoming an author, Del Toro is currently also making a stop-motion version of Pinocchio for Netflix, and he's also adapting the novel Nightmare Alley into a live-action film. I think Fantastic Voyage also is at some point in development. He has a lot of projects in development. I read a piece about a year ago. He talked about kind of a lost decade of scripts, 17 scripts that are fully done and ready to go. But it's just struggling to get so many of them made. Of course, The Mountains of Madness springs to mind, being one of those projects, a labour of love that just never quite saw the light of day. But Nightmare Alley is in production, as is Pinocchio. And anyway, this announcement about Del Toro's literary career got me excited. And the more I thought about it, the more excited I got. You see, most people know the stories about Del Toro's bewitching production design. He carries sketchbooks everywhere, and he dreams these amazing creatures and these amazing locations onto a page. But on top of that, he also maybe more than almost every director you may care to name, he's the master of the visual metaphor. And you have to excuse me, because I'm going to get a bit more analytical than I normally do here in the Film Stories YouTube episodes. Part of my day job involves scrutinising films in close detail, and it seems to me that few filmmakers can top the metaphorical intricacy that Del Toro includes in his films. Hence the reason why I'm so excited to see what wonderful imagery he can whip up with the power of words alone. So to illustrate my point, we're going to look at one example of Del Toro's use of visual metaphor, and this is where the spoilers kick in, kids. We're going to show and discuss major third act occurrences for lots of Del Toro's films, including Pan's Labyrinth, The Devil's Backbone, Crimson Peak. We're also going to spoil Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho as well, because if we've come this far, we might as well go all the way, right? So if you haven't seen any of those films, please leave now. I mean it, leave. On that list alone, there exists one of the very best films of the 20th century in the form of Psycho, and one of the very best films of the 21st century in the form of Pan's Labyrinth, and the others aren't too shabby either. So please don't watch unless you've experienced the thrill firsthand of watching these stories fully yourself. Okay. Gone? Okay, I think we're alone then. Quite possibly I may be all alone, but let's plow on regardless. So I want to illustrate how Del Toro's use of eyes in his filmography present a kind of subliminal method of commenting on the connection his characters have with the world in which they exist. See, I told you it's going to get a bit more analytical than usual, but stay with me. It's not a new idea. Hitchcock was pushing a similar visual motif back in the late 50s with Vertigo and then Psycho, presenting the idea that the eye is a portal of sorts, a kind of barrier between interior meaning and external experience. From Vertigo's iconic title sequence with the eye through to the film's opening with Midge and Scotty and their flickering eyes in the first few scenes hinting at their true feelings, the eye acts as a filter through which the world is internalized, the external world is internalized, and in reverse, the way in which interior meaning can leak outwards into the world. betraying a character's real intentions and true feelings. And Hitchcock would double down with this idea in Psycho after, here come the spoilers, murdering Janet Leigh's Marion Crane relatively early into the film. The close-up shot of the blood washing into the circular shower drain just transposes into a shot of Marion's dead, unblinking eye, and the camera spirals away from her. Maybe that's the best bit of maybe dead acting ever from Janet Leigh, perhaps. But the inference here is clear. As the drain is removing all traces of the blood, the spiraling of the camera away from Marion's eye, also in that circular shape, is the world removing all traces of her. Hitchcock's cruel, uncaring world has destroyed her in an act of random, undeserved violence. So if the eye is a portal between two states, then Marion has shifted between those states, from living to dead. The focus on her eye is also, of course, ironic, given that, unlike the audience, she never saw it coming. Del Toro is clearly influenced by the works of Hitchcock. Here he is talking about the director, talking about Psycho, actually, that same scene, the shower scene. So Del Toro's fascination with eyes is equally present throughout his films. In fact, his opening shot of Pan's Labyrinth, set during the Spanish Civil War, where the child hero Ophelia, her dying breath is captured in an almost exact shot, the exact same kind of backward tracking spiral shot from the eye outwards, which is a clear homage to Psycho, and it carries a similar meaning, that insofar that the eye serves as a portal. For Marion, in Psycho, the double irony was that she just learned to, inverted commas, see, as she decided to replace the money that she'd stolen. She'd seen the right path, I suppose. The money being the narrative MacGuffin that drives the first half of Psycho's narrative. And the doubling back of that irony is that she doesn't see her grisly fate coming, even though everyone in the audience does. But for Ophelia, in Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, the film kind of later reveals that her decision to sacrifice herself to save her baby brother, it demonstrates possession of the kind of, inverted commas, sight needed to be worthy of access to the fantasy world. The blood running back up into her nose as the camera spirals away is an indication of the circular nature of time, and indeed the film's circular narrative, because Pan's Labyrinth is a film that ends where it begins. But for Marion, sadly, she exists in a Hitchcockian world of sudden and random violence, and for her, time only ever moves in one direction. Pan's Labyrinth is full of imagery of eyes throughout, from the statue at the beginning that Ophelia inserts a missing eye into to inadvertently kick off a quest, through to Captain Vidal, who is the film's antagonist, being shot in the face at the film's end, causing his eye to cloud up as he dies. And the meaning here is clear. Vidal's unswerving devotion to the cruel fascist regime of General Franco has blinded him and led to his death. Charmingly, or not, Del Toro pushes a similar fate onto several of his characters. Tom Hiddleston's Thomas Sharp in Crimson Peak takes a knife in the face before he dies. Such a good film, Crimson Peak. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to check it out. Hiddleston takes a knife in the face before he dies, again causing one of his eyes to cloud over with blood, and resulting in one of those irrevocably gothic images, the blood tear. So Hiddleston's Sharp, ironic name, never saw it coming. Again, his blindness, his metaphorical blindness regarding his relationship, preventing him from with his sister, preventing him from seeing his fate. The Devil's Backbone, which Del Toro has called the brother film to Pan's Labyrinth, which he calls the sister film, because it's also set during the Spanish Civil War. The antagonist in that film, Jacinto, suffers again a similar fate as Hiddleston, and of course as Vidal. So even characters in other films of his, such as Mimic and even Pacific Rim, one of his blockbuster films, he still repeats the visual motif of blindness. Characters in those films suffer from imperfect sight, which hinders their ability to discover the truth. So for somebody that once said in a Guardian article, Del Toro was quoted as saying, "Eyes are nasty." Nevertheless, he's mined this visual metaphor to create a rich tapestry of meaning that runs throughout his work. Imagine what he'll do when he has the almost endless number of words in the English language or perhaps the Spanish language available to him. That is a book that I, for one, am very much looking forward to. So that's all from me this week. But if you want more film stories, do hit up our website at filmstories.co.uk, where you can find information about Simon's ongoing UK tour and details of the next print issue of Film Stories, our print magazine, the jewel in the crown. But if you want more film stories right now, that's cool too. You can head over and download podcasts. Head over to your podcast downloader of choice and check out this week's podcast, which is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and the old school Christian Slater movie, Pump Up the Volume. Want even more, you can hit us up on Facebook at Film Stories Online, or you can find the entire Film Stories project on Twitter at Film Stories Pod. Whew. And that's about it right now. So I will see you back here next week. Thanks for tuning in. If you're still here and you want more, please do subscribe. Leave a comment. Interested to know what you think. But please, no spoilers. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.